Hey, it's me. Beautiful day. I always found the idea that this life is worthless compared to the next life to be a bad thing. It always perplexed me and bothered me. Even when I was a Christian, the idea that this life, the life that we are living as living people, is meaningless and irrelevant. I always felt that that was wrong. Maybe it's because I was growing up in a dumping ground for unwanted children, and the things that they did to me there left a lasting impression on me about the fragility of life and the injustice of life, but also about the need for justice. And the idea that we should not worry about this life, that we shouldn't focus on making this life better because there's the afterlife. That always bothered me. What is the afterlife? I mean, as a Christian, I imagined it as this wonderful world where you sit on a cloud and you play the harp and you spend all your time telling God how wonderful He is, telling Jesus how wonderful He is, telling the Holy Spirit how wonderful He is. And then gradually I started to realize that doesn't sound like a very good life. It really does sound like a very scary life, a very scary existence. There's spending eternity forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, sitting on a cloud, playing the harp, wearing a stack of heavy crowns, and kissing ass to a cosmic bully who can read your mind. So you have to force yourself to think only good thoughts about him. As an adult, as a late adolescent, that started to sound kind of terrifying. It wasn't this beautiful, idyllic existence. It was a nightmare. It was living under the ultimate tyrant. And it was terrifying. And it is still terrifying. I mean, who wants to live like that? Constantly kissing ass to a cosmic sky bully who can read your mind. That just sounds terrifying. And you have to do this forever. Oh, no. That's a pretty scary thought. And even as a Christian, I found it just a little unpalatable. But the idea that this is the goal to achieve, and that the life you live now is worthless, pointless, and meaningless, that, it always bothered me. It always bothered me. Now, I'm going to tell you a story from my childhood. When I was a small child living in the dumping ground for unwanted children, a place called CPRI, there was a bigger kid who, he was considered to be far more important than me because he was bigger than me, and he had a symmetrical face, the two sides perfectly balanced, or almost perfectly, and he had big blue eyes, and he had blonde hair. And he had soft features. And of course I had dark curly hair, small, dark, feral eyes, and a slightly lopsided face, but more importantly, I was small. I was quite small. And of course the staff believed him. He had a magical power called believability, which is the ability to convince people through pure bullshit. And he wanted all the toys. And so he made a point of taking all the toys. But one day I found a toy he missed. It was a small toy airplane, and I was playing with this small toy airplane. And he found me, he saw me, he came over, he grabbed the toy and said, "Gimme!" And he shoved me, and I shoved back and clutched the toy, and he fell down and landed on his ass and started crying because nobody had ever stood up to him before. So he ran to the staff. And the staff came running, and they wrestled me to the ground. This little kid that I was, I probably weighed about 60 pounds, and this bigger kid probably weighed about 80 pounds. But 3 adults, the smallest of whom probably weighed about 160 pounds, so 100 pounds more than I did, wrestled me to the ground, held out my arm so that this bigger kid could bite me, and he bit hard, and he drew blood. And then the staff screamed at me and said, "Are you going to bite anyone again?" And I was confused. I'd never bit anyone. So where's the again coming from? "Are you going to take toys from other people again?" I hadn't taken any toys from anybody. It turns out that this kid had gone to the staff and said, "Dan bit me, and he took my toy airplane." And because he had believability, of course, they didn't even question it. And they just believed him sight unseen. They didn't investigate, they didn't ask, they didn't check. Because I was that kid with the dark, feral eyes, and he had big, neotenous eyes, and blonde hair, and a symmetrical face. Very, very symmetrical. And so, of course, they believed him because he had believability. They didn't believe me. So, yes, they trusted him, and apparently he bit himself just so that he could show the staff that I had bit him. But yes, they put me in the quiet room for the rest of the day, and they gave me a supper of a cup of Sustical, which is this chalk-flavored, thick, lumpy fluid that is unpalatable and undigestible, but it's supposed to be a nutritional supplement. And that was my supper that night. And the next day I was required to sit on a mat all day long, and not allowed to play with any toys. And I think I was 8 years old. And this kid got to gloat. He got to gloat about his own privileged existence. And the staff duly reported that I had attacked him and bit him and taken his toy, and I was violent and dangerous. And it continued to be brought up by the staff how violent I was and how dangerous I was, and how I had bit this poor innocent kid and taken his toy. And this remained a part of my official record in CPRI. And yeah, this is the kind of injustice that I lived with. And yet I was able to see that life itself is good. And yet we have people whose lives have been quite wonderful, who they believe that life is a terrible burden that has to be ended as quickly as possible so they can move on to the next one. Come on. Sorry about that. In any case, this is a good life. It's a perfectly good life. It's a wonderful life. It's a beautiful life. And if you can't enjoy it, you're wasting it. Don't waste your life. Enjoy your life. It's that simple. Have a nice day.